If you're building your ABA company and you're tired of guessing, this is for you. We built the EBCBA blueprint to give you real structure, systems, and support without the fluff. Details are in the description. Welcome, everyone. We are going to do a slightly different format today. We've never done this before, so bear with us. But we are going to have a caller. When you listen to the radio talk shows and somebody calls in with a problem, call the love doctors with your relationship problems. So this is going to be talk to the marketing doctor about your marketing stuff. Another live stream with Reece Epstein, ABA marketing guru. Thank you again, Reece, for your time. I talk to dozens of ABA owners every week about problems that they have. And your business consists of systems. There are systems in your business, no matter what. The laws of physics apply across the board. You have operations, you have clinical, you have finance, you have marketing, and 5 or 6 others, depending on your exact business model. If you're bussing clients around, you're going to have a transportation system, right? So you're dealing with all these systems in your business, and you're either doing a good job or a bad job. And if you're not doing anything at all, you're leaving an opening there for other people to manage your reputation for you. And you have to cultivate this, because we've got this situation that we're in the ABA therapy industry where we're not demand constrained, but we are supply constrained. But your marketing is designed to manage the public perception of your organization. And who does that involve? Humans. Humans perceive your company in a certain way, and that way is regulated by your marketing systems. But we have humans on the output side that are receiving services from us, but we also have humans on the input side. So even if you have a waiting list, even if you've got this giant pool of clients and referrals to pick from, we still need to be paying attention to our reputation management at the very least, and marketing, actively cultivating your reputation in the general public. So Reece has all kinds of programs for the ABA therapy industry. And today, in a few minutes, we're going to have Kate, who is an ABA owner. And by the way, the owner of one of the most well-run, efficient, and effective ABA therapy centers that we deal with. We deal with a lot. And she has it together. It's really nice to see a well-run business like this. But there are downturns from time to time with your client pool, right? And she's dealing with a slight downturn, but because she's on top of things, she immediately had that visibility, saw that something's going on, and says, all right, I need to tweak this. So she's always tuning and tweaking her business. So we'll get her involved here shortly. So Reece, welcome once again.
Thank you so much, Derek. And it's a pleasure to be here again. I really appreciate the community you've built and the value you're providing, and just to be invited to be here is an honor. So thank you so much.
Awesome. So I know a little bit about the situation, and we'll bring Kate into the conversation here shortly, but the idea of marketing, not just for clients, but also for your employees. I'd like to get your take on that.
Great question. So it's very interesting how it seems like Indeed has this monopoly on the attention of people who are already RBTs, and certainly of BCBAs. So if you're going to go elsewhere for RBTs and BCBs who are, with RBTs, I'm only talking right now about those who already have their certificates, it can be tricky because Indeed seems to have this monopoly for some reason on it. Just a quick tip is I have heard good things about Apploy as a platform for distributing your job posts and getting applicants. So let's start with a little bit with Indeed. Indeed is built in a way that's user-friendly, I'd say. It's not so hard from a technical perspective to figure out how to post a job and so forth. But people might be surprised by how even subtle differences in what you write can impact how attractive your job post is to applicants. So that's something to be aware of. And so I see some businesses where everything is very dry. It's really just the technical job description. I see other businesses that try to brighten up a bit and communicate something about themselves, but they go over the top and maybe are a little too obvious about what they're trying to do. So it's a bit of a finesse there that's important. Another thing to just be aware of is that it's good to experiment with your budgets, because the recommended budget is probably higher than what you need unless you're running quite a large operation. Now, moving out of Indeed, so the place that people often think about is LinkedIn. I know that certainly recruiters do use LinkedIn and use LinkedIn's recruiting premium subscription to reach out to BCBs and try to get conversations going that way. LinkedIn job ads can vary in efficacy by what exactly you're doing, because if you're looking, let's say, in a specific city, usually the cost per impression, that means for your ad to be seen, is exorbitantly high because there's very little inventory and probably more than just one player trying to get the inventory. They might find that $100 disappears in 2 minutes with 0 clicks. So be very careful about that. If you're going to go nationwide for a remote BCBA, it might actually be relevant to do, but otherwise the paid ads are good try, but it's probably wasted money based on my experience. Google ads can get you clicks from people looking for jobs for sure. I haven't seen it as being more effective than Indeed per se, but if you've maxed out what you can do on Indeed and you want the next channel over, so maybe Google ads makes sense. And then optimizing your website to be found for people looking for job searches for jobs in your area also is a smart move to make, especially since SEO doesn't make you pay per click. So you can put the investment into your website the proper way and then see return on that in the future. I think those are all some important things to think about. There's a very big difference between the audience of people who maybe haven't even heard of ABA therapy, but perhaps have worked in a daycare for a long time, versus people who are in the field, in terms, of course, of salary expectations, but also in terms of what will be involved in marketing and how you communicate and explain what things are. So that's also something to think about as well.
Yeah, and getting back to the job description, we had a question on our live stream from this morning was, what are you guys doing about mileage reimbursements? And I said, it's nice to do the mileage reimbursements, but that's almost not considered when a RBT, when you're doing in-home services, they're almost not considering it up front on your job description. If you do a slightly higher rate of pay instead of the mileage, that's going to be an immediate attractant to your RBT. And then you can have them opt for it. Do you want a lower hourly with the mileage or whatever? So you can have that flexibility, but put the higher rate of pay on your job description and maybe attract a little bit more there. So talk about managing your referral network. We have our pediatricians and the diagnostics places that might be sending us referrals.
Sure.
How are successful ABA centers managing that?
Sure. Your success with referral marketing will depend a lot on where you are. Because if you're in the area where there are many practices who especially have been in business longer than you, it might be hard to convince a pediatrician to send people your way, not somewhere else. So that's something to just be aware of. And for some startups in competitive areas, it's not even so effective to really do. And also it's important to remember that sometimes a referral source sends a few people to you and it dries up. Maybe they forget about it, or maybe someone else also knocked on their door and gave them donuts, or maybe whatever, something happened and things shifted. So just to be aware that sometimes a good referral source makes your business, and other times it's up and down, other times it just doesn't go. So I think it's just there being relatable and going to meet people, ideally in person if you can. If you can have some sort of branded, useful thing for parents to leave there in the office, that might be a way to get parents to be aware of you. Something maybe they like to play with or whatever it is that's branded with your logo, and if they leave, obviously. So in some areas that you really can get a good referral just because there's just no one there, or there are some practices but everyone's upset with them because their quality of service is very low, and then maybe the pediatrician or psychologist knows that and wants some other option. In other places, it's going to be hard to build your business on referrals.
Yeah, and we have this complexity, this little complicating factor with the BACB code of ethics with not being able to ask people for referrals. But I know you're well educated on those codes and how to handle it. But would a BCBA
that fits the reviews more than referrals? I think that to ask a doctor,
yeah.
It's not about the reviews. Yeah, is that maybe that's what you meant? You meant the reviews.
No, my question was specifically about if a pediatrician sends you a client and
Sure.
you start working with that client, is it acceptable ethically to ask that client to tell the pediatrician that you're happy with the referral? Is that not allowed?
That's very interesting.
I looked at it and I couldn't really figure it out. Yeah.
We can parse it together and see.
Yeah.
Parse it live. I don't think that's what they have in mind. I think that the BCB has adopted a position that just in general, reviews are not such an ethical thing. I think, and that's like not a standard business ethics approach. That's what the BCB has chosen. So I don't think I don't know, it's interesting. Maybe they would say it's a dual relationship. because the parent may feel imposed upon if you ask them to tell the doctor you like them. Could be, could be.
Yeah.
You could probably be clever about it though. Like if you really wanted to, you could probably just find an excuse to have the doctor and the client on the phone maybe, and somehow drive the conversation in the right direction.
Yeah, it's possible. All right. So I want to bring Kate on. So we've talked a little bit about her situation, she and I, and it's funny because like our clients, we end up going so deep into all the different things about their business because of our involvement in the industry, but historically steady flow of clients, no issues there. She did what I did when I started my business and named it a name that starts the letter that's low down on the alphabet. So the referral lists that are at the doctor's offices, they're at the end of those. And we could do like the old phone book trick where you do A1, the name of your company and whatever. But aside from that, cheesy tactics, we looked at her Google business profiles and, hey, let's get some updated pictures of the inside of your center where it looks nice and the kiddos are actually hanging out. Maybe an updated picture, like a better picture of the outside of your center. And then just clean that up a little bit. And then we also already talked about their website just in the context of the call to action. Like, where should that be located on the website? Right now, theirs is 2 clicks deep. So you've got to click, actually, it's 2 clicks deep. Got to click on the menu and then click on the next page. And then there's a button there that says learn more. So immediately, hey, let's get that on the front page. So it loads up and it's right on the front screen. So in less than a second, they can recognize this is where I go next to find out more, or this is where I go to enroll. So I wanted to bring Kate on live. Hopefully she's ready, but it's all good, Kate, because we'll allow your mic here. You hear us okay? You got to unmute yourself. I just gave you permission. Are you there? See if she joins back up. Kate, if you can hear me, you can use your, you can unmute your microphone when you're ready.
Hey, sorry. I just got access to it. There we go.
All right. There you go. All right, cool. I think Josh actually fixed it. So give us the high altitude backstory and first of all, I'd like to know how you caught this. What did you see this in your business where you immediately recognized we've got the slightest little downturn here?
Yeah. So we're in the last year and a half or so, we've been in a growth phase. And so we have been adding more clients to the caseload than just replacing those that have left. So that is an additional, we needed more inflow for that reason. But over the last maybe 6 months or so, really noticed that my intake, so my requests for services had really slowed down. I had less kids on my waiting list to when I do have a spot that opens up. I was going through the list, either didn't have enough that needed the time slot that we had available or whatnot. Just basically less clients to be able to choose from, a smaller pool, if you will. And so just as we were looking for more clients, noticing it was getting harder and harder to fill those just because the stream had dried up a little bit.
So tell us about where you're getting those clients from. How are they normally ending up on your waiting list?
To be honest with you, we have on our intake form, we have one of the questions is, how did you hear about us? Most of the time, honestly, it's Google or an internet search of some kind. But we've been in our local area for, it'll be 10 years this year. And fortunately, over the years, we have gotten ourselves onto those recommended lists that come from diagnostic providers because we're early intervention. So usually people are coming to us right after they get their diagnosis for the first time. And so in the past, we have been on those lists. So when you get a diagnostic report, you can see, oh, there we are. We've been listed on there. But honestly, I think based on the intake questions, most of the time people are finding us through Google or an online search.
Google. What would you say the percentage is?
Oh, golly. Probably 75%. We do have good referrals, like a friend told me, or like a Facebook group. There's a local, pretty robust autism moms Facebook group in our area. And I have actually seen several people that say we got a recommendation from there. I'm not privy to it because I'm not a parent, so I'm not a member of that group, but that's what I hear.
How are you managing your relationships with your referral sources? Like, how proactive are you about that?
Full transparency, not very active. It hasn't been an issue in the past. What I do is in years past, I'll see the referrals or intake requests slow down, not to the point we are right now. And then I'll reach out to usually the care managers at our funders. That usually most insurance companies will have kind of an ABA team. I suppose if we're lucky, they have that. So I'll call them because I formed a relationship with all those people. And so I'll call them and say, hey, if you've got people that are looking, this is what we have available for what age, yada, yada. So I will check in with them. And then I will call the major diagnostic providers in the area. We have a very limited pool of diagnostic providers in our local market here. And honestly, that particularly the couple of years after COVID, that was the huge bottleneck. No one could get a diagnosis. It was taking 18 months just to get an appointment. And then by the time they get to us, they're too old for our program. So that was messy, but really just staying in touch with them, letting them know that we're here and we're available if they have any clients that are looking for services for this age range, whatnot.
Have you met those people, or are you just emailing them and calling on the phone, or what's the actual contact with the diagnostics?
With the diagnostic providers, I had met, and this was years ago when I originally was doing all of this legwork, I had met them, the providers, most of the providers. Sometimes I couldn't get past the front staff, but mostly I have seen some of the smaller providers that's like them in their own business rather than the big hospital organizations. Usually I get to the people at the front desk there and they'll take any literature that I have or promo products or whatnot. So I did that early on, but I haven't done much other than reach out just over the phone or via email in the last couple of years.
What are your thoughts, Reece?
First of all, Kate, thank you for sharing the background of what's happening for your practice. I'm thinking it's a bit of a funny thing to do. Kate, if you're up for it, maybe you can send Derek a quick email with a link to your website and he can send it to me. I could take a look. So I would like to give you advice tailored to, without sharing to the public any information, just to give you advice tailored to where you are in YC. If that would interest you, of course, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be wonderful.
Okay, great. We'll play tag team here and just send it to Derek and Derek will send it to me.
Absolutely. And I have it. I'll get it to you, Reece. So what do you think about what are the ABA companies doing to really proactively manage that relationship with the diagnostic providers, pediatricians, that kind of thing?
It sounds like, Kate, what you were doing originally probably is a set of good practices. So it could be just re-engaging them the same way is helpful. If I understood correctly, that was more of a thing you did early on. But Derek, I'll check my email because I could be, depending on where Kate is located, I may have quite a lot of insight into that particular area.
I'll send it to you right now.
I will say, just from my layperson's analysis of our market, so what I am seeing, I'm one of probably pretty few practices left that's locally owned, not corporate. Most of the big corporate ones have come in and webbed out from there. The biggest problem that I have is capacity. So we're a small clinic. We have caps for the number of cases that our BCBAs can carry. And so what happens oftentimes is when I do have a good flow of enrollment requests coming in, a lot of times I have to put them on a wait list. And then when I finally do have a spot open up, I reach out and they've gone somewhere else, which is logical. That makes perfect sense. But that's the challenge that I face is by the time I have a spot available, I've lost them. So my wait list is great to have that, but it is absolutely zero guarantee that those people are still needing services by the time I have a spot available. So it's a tricky little spot because I'm competing with these really big companies that when they get an intake, they'll just hire somebody new. They'll hire another BCBA. That's not how our org structure works. So we don't do that. It might be a limitation for us, but that is the challenge I think that's facing us.
It's also smart not to get over your skis growth-wise too. So it's good.
It's been working for 10 years, so we'll see how we go from here. But
Kate has plans. She, like, when I talk to her about stuff, like, she has a plan. Like, there's always, and if there's not a plan, she creates one. One thing that I know just from my experience as a business owner in general is the name of our company is WOM. That stands for word of mouth. And it's great for the first 5 years, 8 years in business, 10 years. But as you start to mature, other people come into town. If you're not on top of those relationships, those referrals tend to wither away over time. And it's just human nature. They forget about you. Some other new person walks in and says, hey, I brought Panera. If you want a winner, show up with Panera, and people love it. And it's not even about getting them to like you. It's just them knowing that you exist and what you do and just staying top of mind. Or we don't have an option for staying top of list due to the alphabetical struggle, but at least staying on the top of mind so that people are talking about you. And Google is good. Like right now, Google is important. We have to make sure that we're staying up there on the SEO, but you also need to make sure that when people think local ABA, they're thinking your business, because there's a lot of, hey, Alexa going on and it's not necessarily find this near me. It's more when I ask Siri to call someone, I'm not saying, hey, Siri, find a air conditioning guy in my area. I'm saying, hey, Siri, call Air Plus. Siri's going off right now, but I'm saying call Air Plus in Stewart. And it's looking it up because that's the name that's on my mind that I know of because I've seen their branding so much. I just did that this morning, but it's important to stay on top of those relationships. Did you see the call to action link that I'm talking about?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did agree that there. Yeah, I won't be able to diagnose why all of a sudden did something change. Why something was working, you're getting enough people from search, and then it dried up. I did a quick skim of your website to understand just fundamentally what's happening from in broad strokes from an SEO perspective. And there's something like bad, but it's definitely not where you want to be to outdo your competition locally. The standard practices for larger PE-backed companies will include some mix of organic search engine optimization, Google ads, meta ads, all of those, one of those, something, right? It is conceivable that a competitor or multiple competitors just went big and started eating up a lot of the search traffic. So I think it's going to be hard to know what it's speculative at this point, what exactly shifted that changed against your favor. So I think the question is, so what do you do going forward? It sounds like from what you said, Kate, that you're taking younger kids only, may I assume like 18 months to 5 years old?
Yeah, up to 6.
Up to 6. And are you taking Medicaid?
Yes.
Yeah, that helped a lot. When you advertise, there are certain ways sometimes we can only target people who have younger kids. And we just got some third-party data that we can use in the meta ads, for example, to do that. That's not like a standard thing. So using your standard tools, most approaches that you take, one, to putting in front of people with kids of all ages. And so by nature, businesses that take older kids as well will have an advantage in getting cases because they can say yes to more people who contact them. So we just have to be aware of that. So for example, if a certain channel might for in-home practice going up to age result in 10% of interested parents becoming actual clients, for you maybe it's 5%. Is that a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. It's just though we have to be aware of it. On the flip side, for people with younger kids, they probably would prefer a center. So if you zoom in on the younger kid demographic, you probably have an advantage over an in-home practice. Okay, my recommendation for centers specifically is that you really want to give as much a try as you can because you're not going to know in advance which avenue is going to get you specifically the younger kids with the diagnosis. That's a tricky thing. You are definitely in a metropolitan sort of area. That's very helpful because there's a lot of people out there, and there are people who need your services, Kate. So I'm sure you know that. So it's a matter of getting in front of them the right way. If the budget allows for it, I'd say try all the avenues available. Try some paid Google ads, try some SEO, try some meta ads, and see where you get the best ROI. And it's interesting, it used to be very clear that Google ads would have more expensive results. Like it costs more money to get someone in touch with you, but a higher quality overall on average of person in terms of their likelihood to engage in services versus meta ads. But in some markets that flips in the sense that in terms of conversion rate. So meta might still be cheaper, but even get you better quality. So some things have shifted in different markets depending on the competition and just local dynamics. So I think in your situation, the best thing is try everything, which isn't my favorite answer to give. I think if you had to pick just one channel, I'm going to speak in terms of how I do things. So I can't speak to how other people use Google ads or Facebook ads or what they do for SEO because there are lots of ways to do it wrong. So I'm saying the platforms in general. I'm just saying in terms of what I would tend to recommend is that the right approach on meta ads is probably most suited to you. Why? Because it's going to give you a lot of volume and it'll give you quicker results than your other options. And the combination of those two factors is going to give you a real noticeable and quick change in what's happening. So that would be my simple first recommendation if you couldn't do everything. But you never really know where you're going to find those kids ages 18 months to 6 years old with a diagnosis most efficiently without trying everything. So that may be a more strategic sort of discussion. Certainly there are more ways to go wrong than right with each of these options. And I'd also caution against using your website as the place to send traffic to at this point. I think that it's very important to have your web optimized version perspective before you start paying for traffic to go there. So in a nutshell, those are my thoughts, just in a nutshell, my basic guidance for where you're at.
Fantastic. Thank you, Reece. Really appreciate it.
Just for context on the conversion stuff, like that's a bit of what we were talking about earlier, Kate, with
Yes.
your making sure that you have that call to action on the front page, making sure when somebody does hit the page, they're there. And then having a way to contact you that doesn't go all the way into the HIPAA compliant jot form, but it's instead of having the email on the website, having a form contact us button where it can pop up. And if they're on their phone, because most of your traffic is going to be on the phone. So just them being able to pop in their name, their phone number, their email, and send, no PHI or anything like that, no messaging, just their contact info. But I wanted to talk a little bit, Reece.
If I may.
Yeah.
So I would add in two really important things. I would suggest having your phone number in the header on the right of the page in a noticeable button that has some contrast from the rest of the header. And I'd recommend making sure that is visible at the top of your website on mobile devices. Secondly, I'd recommend having a chatbot on your website. It can be tricky to find a HIPAA compliant one. One thing that scares people about chatbots is what if no one's there at my office to manage the chatbot? So we actually, in our system, the way it works is it looks like a chatbot, but it starts an SMS conversation, and we just tell them we'll get back to you during business hours. But that way you don't have to be like locked into a chatbot the whole time. But the first one is easy. You just have your phone number in the header and make sure it's available, clearly visible on mobile for people.
With the call link, click to call. Yeah.
Click to call. Yes. Click to call link. Yes. And as Derek was saying, yes, to have the call to action right there the second you see your website pop up on the phone to also go to your contact form, or even to have the form there. And some websites will see the form right there at the top, which is even better.
So on the group analytics, I know she has a group in her town that she's not allowed in because a lot of them restrict by only parents for children with autism, which is reasonable. Sure. But what kind of analytics can you use from the population within those groups to send ads to those people on Meta? I know that there's some possibility with audiences and stuff, but I'm not real familiar with the Meta ads. But
it used to be fairly easy to essentially create a list of people in a particular group and then advertise to them. Today, it's not so easy, but probably someone out there who can do it. I don't know how to do it. And then Meta itself, in Facebook ads, it used to be you could target people based on their interest in autism, and they took that away. You can no longer target anybody based on healthcare particular interests. We do have access to third-party data from big data companies that we import into accounts if we want to use that. So we actually could do that, but Facebook doesn't let you do it standardly.
So I think maybe the target audience for Meta ads would look something like the age group of the mothers. That would be the appropriate age to have children that are in those age groups. Of course, you have outliers like me, who's 42 years old, and I have a 5-year-old. So you've got some weirdos out there that have kids older or younger focusing on that central group. Do you think that's a possibility?
I don't think that's so uncommon these days to have a child at the age of 5 at your age, but
you're just trying to make me feel better.
That's useful. But yeah, so with targeting, here's the thing. Unfortunately, autism is so prevalent that you can be effective social media ads, even though you can't target people based on their having demonstrated to Meta an interest in the topic of ABA or autism. There's so much autism out there that if you get in front of people, you'll be in front of parents of kids on the spectrum. That's not the biggest worry, but again, there are ways to go about it wrong. So for example, Meta has been steering all of its advertisers to use something called Advantage Plus targeting. And they tell you in the platform it leads to a higher conversion rate and it's going to be really good for you. And they set it as the default. And it looks like this innocent thing, but for local businesses, it's actually really bad because it will force your ads into places very far from where you're located. So there are lots of ins and outs. To me, that would be more important just to disable that than to, as the first step. Otherwise, you'll get people from 3 states over instead of where you're located. So again, there are a lot of tricks of the trade, but Derek, yes, what you said is correct, that you want to target parents. You're targeting parents, not targeting the kids for ads. And you want to think about what ages are they likely to be. And because you're dealing with a local area usually, unless you're doing the whole state that you're in, you have to be careful not to limit your targeting too much because there's only so many people around in a city in Facebook terms, meaning Meta is most efficient when you have 30 million people in an audience as opposed to 500,000 or 200,000. So it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It does work on smaller audiences, but don't make them smaller than you have to.
Gotcha. Can I piggyback on since we're talking about Facebook and social media, I My clinic has a Facebook page and like an Instagram page. I am so not a social media person, and I have them. I've never interacted with anything on them. I've never posted anything. Is that problematic?
It's a problematic. I'm not gonna say it's problematic per se. I think it's a good thing to post things. And what you can do, it's so easy these days. You can just use AI to write social media posts for you. And you can schedule them. And you can use canva.com to create some images and videos. Not so hard. You can even have someone who works in your office do it for you, since you probably have higher value things to do in the business. It's nice to have social media posts on your social media so you look active, but it's not the posts to your page that are effective in getting clients. And that's because going back maybe years now, Meta decided that business pages get almost zero free exposure of their posts. So if you post something, Meta is not really interested in showing that post to anybody. When someone goes onto Meta, to Facebook or Instagram, for every spot available on their screen, there could be tens of thousands of posts that the platform is trying to figure out, start to choose from, just to put something in front of you, because there's so many posts out there, right? And they have decided, we don't really show small business posts that much. And even if you have an audience, so even if you invest lots of money to get people to like your page, if you just post something, you don't get much reach, because what do they want? They want you to pay for ads, not get free reach or exposure. So the posting itself is nice aesthetically. It is not so important. It's not what drives getting clients. For that, you need to be using the ads manager account, something you have to create in Facebook, and putting a budget behind it.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
And I think it's important to have a decent amount of content on your social media accounts that you do have, because, and it's not just clients that are looking for you on there either. Back to the other humans that we're marketing to, your RBTs, BCBAs that might be looking for a job in the area. They're going to look into you, and we look into them on social media before we hire them. They're looking into the businesses that they're applying for or interviewing with as well. So I think it's a positive thing to have some visibility from the outside into the inside of a business, especially when you're dealing with a business that's going to be in custody of your child for a certain period of time. The more they know about it, the more they're going to be comfortable with it too. But yeah, as far as drawing people in, you need some external device that's pulling those people in. And then when they land, it's important to have your contact information, your call to action, stuff like that developed. But you said you have an Instagram as well, or you're just on Facebook?
I have both. The accounts are there. Truthfully, I don't think I've gone to those pages in years, but they're there.
What do you think about social media marketing for good ideas that parents are going to see, and that kind of content? Reece, is that in your wheelhouse?
The problem is they don't seem like it, unless, as you suggest, they're searching you out. So if someone is researching you, they might go to your page. What would they like? There's so many things you can do. The funny thing is, with being in marketing, I'm not like a social media lover myself.
Yeah.
No, it's not my thing. Like, I have other things to do. But having a center is really helpful, because you have things to photograph. Nice team pictures, team profiles, pictures of your center if it looks nice. But you can have some posts that talk about what you do or your values, or interesting visuals. But then that's up to you, just to be creative and express yourself. It's challenging because there's so many things on a business owner's plate. It can be hard to focus on these particular details. But hopefully that gives you some ideas.
Yeah.
If you could set up, I didn't look on the website to see if there was a blog, but one thing that's helpful, even with your referral people, and to stay in front of them and stay top of mind, is to have a newsletter, even if it's just monthly. Have a newsletter that goes out and shares your blog articles, that talks about your approach, that talks about your way of doing things, your why and your way, why you're doing what you're doing, the way that you do it that sets you apart, and having those people on your email list. And the nice thing about doing that and aiming it at your referral network is it's a small list. You don't have to have a ton of emails on that list. So you can pretty much manage that yourself with a constant contact or something like that. But did you have any other topics you wanted to bring up while you're here?
You want to be careful about HIPAA, though, just to make sure that that's whatever you're using is compliant. Yeah,
the photos and the copy, obviously. Yeah.
Well, the contact information can also be something to be concerned about as well.
Oh yeah, but when I was talking about was, is there an issue with referral networks? If you were emailing like pediatricians, not about
pediatricians? No, pediatricians,
Yeah.
no. But I'm saying if you're a healthcare practice and you upload your emails to Constant Contact and you don't have a BEA, then you're probably violating it.
Yes, don't do that. Yeah, I would say like for your referral network, if you have a diagnostic centers, yeah,
Right.
you have diagnostic centers, pediatricians, those people
It's not a helpful one to do that, of course.
do a newsletter with them. Yeah, there's not much to do with the referrals with the clients rather on the.
With parents, you could in theory have a newsletter. I don't know if it would give you clients per se. Where we use email is that when we collect leads who have given an email address, we send them marketing emails automatically over the course of a few weeks in order to build rapport and familiarity, have touch points. And that's all. I think it's for another webinar. We just use the marketing automation to create more touch points and therefore get more clients.
Sequence. Awesome. Kate, thanks for joining us. Did we help a little bit there?
Yeah, absolutely. I have tons of great leads to work on based on your recommendations. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much to you both.
And I can tell you right now, Reece, tomorrow she will have her strategy mapped out. And next week, this won't even be an issue anymore.
I already have the little favicon or flavicon or whatever that's called. I already have that on there. I already fixed that this morning.
She executes. She executes. So that's what it's all about, everybody. You can't just learn this stuff and not execute. You have to have execution. Real quick before we wrap up here, Reece, did you have anything else that you wanted to make sure we covered?
If we have a few minutes, we could talk in a little bit about a strategy more abstractly than
Absolutely
broadly rather than abstractly. But so I think a few things to keep in mind when you're thinking about what marketing strategy to choose would be, first of all, to be aware that whether you're in-home or center-based, and then what population is there in the area that you service, and what pairs you take all make a difference, because certain channels attract certain demographics, which can mean differences in age of children or what insurances they have. So that's very important to think about. It's also important to be as aware of what your competition might be doing right now. And then it's also important to think about marketing as a number scheme. You need a certain number of people to interact with your brand somehow online, to get a smaller number of people, a percentage of those to make contact with you. And then you need a percentage of those to make contact with you to then move through to becoming a client. So it's important to think in terms of the numbers. It's also important to realize if you're used to having solely referrals, your close rate, as we call it, will be lower typically with any marketing efforts. It's different. It's very different for someone to say, oh, my doctor said, go to this person here. Now I'm going there, versus you see someone online. So just be aware of that. You might need to talk with more people than you would think in order to get your cases. And I think there's just a few good pointers to keep in mind.
Definitely. And we have a lot of new ABA businesses that are starting up that we're, like I said, dozens a week we're talking to. And I think it's important to just understand this concept. And I repeat it daily a few times. We are not necessarily in a demand constrained market, but we are in a supply constrained market. We have to make sure that we're focusing on the humans on both ends of those with our marketing. Your company, no matter what industry you're in or what you're doing, you have a marketing department or a functional area of your business that is marketing. Not managing it means it's just happening. It's a ghost in the system. And the number one thing is to at least do something proactive and pay attention to what's going on in that area, because if you're not cultivating your reputation, someone else will, especially when you're like Kate, you're in an area where either there already is private equity backed companies that are paying attention to this stuff, or if there's not now, there likely will be soon. So the better foothold you have on a market in your area, the better off you are. So really, really helpful to have you here, Reece. Again, I thank you for your time. Thank you, Kate, for the input. That was fun.
You betcha.
All right, we will wrap this up, and this recording will be up in a couple of days, y'all. But if you're watching this recording and you want to get a hold of Reece, his information will be in the description on this video. We love you guys. We'll see you on the group. Reece, thanks again, sir.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Take care.
You're already doing the work, investing your time, your energy, and your vision. So let's make it count. Build something that works without breaking you. The EBCBA Blueprint is the way. Get started for free with our foundation course.